morning. You're listening to The Brief Wake Up, your mindful start to the day. I'm Handel, your daily coffee companion, helping you wake up informed, thoughtful, and maybe just a little amused before the day gets old. If you're commuting, corralling kids, or just standing in line for caffeine, you're in the right place. Let's get you caught up. Let's start with what should be most important: our health. Topic of today: which sugar substitute is really better for you? This morning, we will talk about something sweet, and not in a good way. When you pick up a sugar-free or low-calorie snack, it feels like a healthier choice. But research says these sweeteners don't just pass through your body quietly. They talk back to your gut, your hormones, even your brain. With regular sugar, your enzymes split it into glucose and fructose. Glucose is the fuel of your brain. The problem isn't sugar itself, it's too much sugar. That's what floods your system, raises insulin, and drives inflammation, weight gain, and disease. So, we turn to substitutes, hoping for a free pass. But every one of them comes with trade-offs. Let's take them one by one. Aspartame. That's your classic diet soda sweetener, around since the 80s. It breaks down into amino acids and does not affect gut bacteria, so it doesn't mess much with your microbiome. But the downside: high doses in animals raise insulin and artery inflammation, and large human studies have linked heavy aspartame intake to higher body fat and possibly cancer. Regulators still call it safe in moderation, but it's no metabolic miracle. Over time, it may even increase hunger by confusing your brain's reward circuits. Sweet taste without real calories. Sucralose, sold as Splenda, is 600 times sweeter than sugar and mostly passes right through you. Sounds great until you learn it. It can alter glucose control in people with obesity and may tweak gut bacteria in ways that promote inflammation. Some studies show it triggers brain regions that drive appetite. So, while you're saving calories now, your body might be nudging you to eat them back later. Now, stevia. It's plant-derived, and it does lower blood sugar and insulin spikes, a plus for people managing diabetes. But natural doesn't mean harmless. Stevia can change how sweet receptors in your gut signal insulin and satiety. It may help you control cravings at first, but if you use it constantly, your brain can still stay wired for sweetness, keeping the sugar habit alive in a different form. And monk fruit, the newcomer from Southeast Asia. Early lab data suggests its compounds, called maugrosides, may even have anti-inflammatory or anti-cancer properties. But human data are thin, and some products mix monk fruit with sugar alcohols like erythritol, which can cause bloating, gut distress, and may raise cardiovascular risk in high doses. Check the label. Pure monk fruit extract is one thing, blended sweeteners are another. So, which one wins? Here's the truth. None of them are villains, but none are heroes either. The World Health Organization now advises against long-term use of non-sugar sweeteners for weight control because the evidence for benefit just isn't there. And some data hint at increased risk for diabetes and heart disease. If you must sweeten, stevia and monk fruit are the better researched and lower impact options. Aspartame and sucralose are fine occasionally, just not daily staples. But the healthiest move of all: don't chase sweetness, dial it down. Retrain your palate to enjoy foods closer to their natural taste. Because whether it's real sugar or the fake stuff, the more you feed the sweet tooth, the louder it gets. That's your health dose for this morning. Now let's move from the sweet to the serious. Your world news headline is next. In the news, The United States pushes for peace, but Ukraine stands firm. In this morning's top story, the White House is pushing forward on a new diplomatic front to end the war in Ukraine. But deep divisions remain over how peace should actually look. President Trump announced he'll send Special Envoy Steve Witkoff to Moscow to meet Vladimir Putin, while Army Secretary Dan Driscoll travels to Kyiv later this week for further discussions. The goal? To bridge what the president called only a few remaining points of disagreement. But despite that optimism, there's still no real breakthrough on the two biggest sticking points: territorial control and security guarantees. Those are the same obstacles that have derailed every previous round of talks. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said he's willing to meet Trump soon to discuss final details of a deal. But he made one thing clear: any agreement must include European allies and cannot mean surrendering land. Ukraine insists it will not cede the remaining parts of Donetsk still under its control, territory Russia continues to demand. Meanwhile, on the ground, the war grinds on. Overnight, Russian forces launched 22 missiles and 464 drones, most aimed at Kyiv and nearby regions. At least 7 people were killed, and power infrastructure was damaged again across several cities. Behind the scenes, negotiations are being described as intense but fragile. Washington's current proposal, a 28-point framework first discussed in Geneva, reportedly limits the size of Ukraine's army, offers war crimes amnesty to all sides, and raises troop cap from 600,000 to 800,000. Kyiv's officials have called it an improvement, but not yet acceptable. Across Europe, leaders are voicing concern that the US could push a deal seen as favoring Moscow. Finland's president called the coming days decisive. France's President Macron warned that any peace built on forced concessions would amount to a capitulation. For now, Trump says he'll only hold a direct summit with Putin and Zelensky once a near final deal is in place, a sign the White House wants progress before putting its political weight on the line. Negotiations continue this week in Abu Dhabi and Moscow, with both sides signaling cautious progress, but the guns are still firing. This morning and for the next few mornings, the Big Sip gives way to Tech and Culture, where we start a 5-part series on the contribution of George Boole to understanding how the mind works, how we make decisions, and the overlap with neurodivergence and neurodiversity. So welcome to our first entry into this discussion: the binary brain. Before we ever built computers, our minds were already running like one. Think about how you decide almost anything: yes or no, stay or go, safe or dangerous, trust or doubt. Every moment your brain sorts the world into 2 simple boxes: the ones and zeros of survival. That's not new. But in the mid-1800s, a quiet English mathematician named George Boole looked at that pattern and thought, what if we could turn thinking itself into math? He realized that every choice, every sentence, every question could be broken down into true or false if you combine them using rules like and, or, and not. You could build logic itself like stacking blocks. If it's raining and I don't have an umbrella, this equals stay inside. If it's sunny or warm, this equals go for a walk. That's Boolean logic, the language underneath reasoning. A century later, engineers took Boole's math and used it to design electrical switches, circuits that open for false and close for true. That's how computers were born. Your phone, your laptop, even your thermostat. They all run on Boole's idea that thinking can be turned into yes-no questions. But here's the deeper truth. Our brains already do the same thing. To make sense of a noisy, unpredictable world, we filter complexity into small binary choices. Our neurons literally fire, or they don't. A pulse that says on or off. And in some people, depending on where you lie on the neurodiversity spectrum, that Boolean wiring is stronger, sharper, and more precise. This is what autism often shows us: a mind drawn to structure, pattern, and literal meaning. It's not a lack of emotion, it's a different logic of attention. While most of us live comfortably in the gray, the autistic brain sees the grid beneath it: the rules, the patterns, the truth tables of life itself. We will get into truth tables in a later episode. Now back to Professor Boole. He believed logic was a reflection of divine order, a way to glimpse the architecture of thought. And maybe he was right, because every if, this, then that in your brain, every decision, every intuition is part of that same binary rhythm. So, the next time your phone answers a question in an instant, remember, it's echoing something much older. The logic that's been pulsing in the human mind since long before we ever touched a keyboard. Yes, no, true, false. Professor Boole gave our thoughts a language. Back to the lighter roast. We previously touched on the statistics of dating. So, let's carry on. Love by the numbers. Part 2. The gender gap. Last time we talked about how finding love is basically a statistical miracle. Today let's stir in one more ingredient that tilts the odds even further: gender. Because believe it or not, the dating math isn't the same for everyone. In most cities, for every 100 single women in their late 20s and 30s, there are only about 86 single men. And if you're college educated, that gap gets wider, more like 130 women for every 100 men. So yeah, ladies, it's not your imagination. There really is a shortage. And guys, before you start celebrating, don't. Because women are swiping way smarter. On most apps, men swipe right almost half the time. Women? About 14%. That means men are fishing with a net, and women are spearfishing in the dark. So while men complain about no matches, women complain about too many wrong ones. Two people, same frustration, totally different math. Then there's timing. In their 20s, women are more likely to look for stability, while men are still in exploration mode. By their late 30s and early 40s, it flips. Men start looking for something real just as women are thinking, "You had your chance 10 years ago. I'm good." That's not cynicism, that's statistics with an attitude. And let's not forget what the algorithms do to all this. They amplify extremes. The top 15% of men and women get 80% of the attention. It's the dating app version of capitalism. The rich in matches get richer. The rest just refresh their phones. So, who's winning? Nobody really. Women face a scarcity of emotionally available partners who match their standards. Men face rejection rates that could qualify for a research grant on resilience. Both sides think the system's rigged, and the truth is, they're both right, but for opposite reasons. Still, here's the hopeful spin. Love doesn't care about your algorithm. Sometimes the right person shows up completely off app, off guard, and off schedule, which statistically speaking, might be the only variable the math can't predict. Tomorrow, we delve into how our own filters may help or hurt us in the search for love. Before we wrap this morning, let's take a look at what today, November 26th, brings to the calendar of history and heart. First up, it's National Cake Day. A good reminder that sometimes life deserves a little sweetness. Whether it's a slice of chocolate, a quiet cupcake, or the last piece someone saved for you. Cake is less about sugar and more about celebration. It's about marking the good days before they disappear into memory. Today is also Good Grief Day, and that's the other side of the human story. It honors the idea that grief isn't something to get over. It's something we live with, grow through, and carry forward. It's permission to miss, to remember, to keep loving what's gone. Then there's National Jukebox Day, a nod to the music machines that once filled diners and bars with soundtracks of entire generations. From Sinatra to Springsteen, every spin was a story, every quarter a memory. So maybe today, put on a song that used to mean something. Let it play. Let it remind you where you were when you first heard it. And for those celebrating abroad, especially in India, today is Constitution Day, marking the adoption of the Indian Constitution back in 1949, a milestone for the world's largest democracy and a reminder that freedom once written must still be lived and protected. Now a few moments from history. On this day in 1789, George Washington proclaimed the first official day of national Thanksgiving, the ancestor of the holiday many Americans will celebrate tomorrow. In 1922, explorers opened the tomb of King Tutankhamen, revealing treasures that redefined our understanding of ancient Egypt. And in 1942, moviegoers in New York watched Casablanca for the very first time. And somehow, "Here's looking at you, kid," never stopped echoing. So, November 26 sits in a strange, beautiful balance between grief and gratitude, history and melody, cake and constitution, a day to remember what we've built, what we've lost, and what we still get to celebrate. That's your commemoration for November 26th. From the sweetness of sugar substitutes to the hard math of modern dating. Today's brief wake-up explored how our choices in food, logic, and love reveal the patterns that shape us. We saw that every sugar-free fix carries its own trade-offs. Boolean logic still runs beneath the circuitry of our minds, and the gender gap keeps romance as unpredictable as ever. And on this day of cake, jukeboxes, and constitutions, we're reminded that life, like logic, works best when we balance reason with a little sweetness. I'm Handel for the brief wake-up. Remember to be calm, kind, and curious, and top of that cup of either coffee or matcha. Till next time.